Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It was a busy weekend into the evening with Pebble Beach golf. Took me a couple of days to catch up with this guy, but he'll get you on the links. And he had night golf going on, and they got the world's biggest golf tournament going on, and they've gotten some nice weather in and around a few raindrops down at Compass Point Golf. We welcome in my dear friend Robert Canady. He is Buckets and Birds, and your nickname this week is Tommy Two Shoes. And you know why, going back to last week, we talk so much about Tiger Woods. We talk so much about the roses and the real Koepka, the guys on the tour that have really, become the guys we're going to... And Tiger takes up all the oxygen, as we pointed out. But everybody else on the tour, when a Gary Woodland wins, we're like, hey, who's that guy, right?
Yeah, a lot of people did. I mean, I think except for some of us hardcore people that follow it on a week-to-week basis, he was one that, he's been on the radar. He's been out there on tour for 6 or 7 years, and he's a big hitter and hits it a mile, and looked like he was going to be a superstar any time. And doing some of the fantasy golf stuff I do off and on, he was one I would always pick, and then he let me down so many times. So I'd kind of gotten off the Woodland train, but always had an eye on him. And to be honest, I didn't realize he was playing as well this year as he was coming in to the U.S. Open. He had snuck in I think a top 10 in the PGA and or Masters, and it kind of was coming in under the radar. And he was certainly not one I mentioned when we spoke, before the event. And but it's not. He wasn't one that shocked me where I said, who the heck is he? But some of those that only follow golf on the periphery might very well have said that.
I don't talk to you much about this because we promote the golf course, and I'm wearing my Compass Point hat, and I'm going to have your Kiwi friend on in a couple weeks. We're going to get after it here later on in the summer about all things golf. But, I'll say this. Golf is the ultimate growth mindset sport, right? Like, even an old guy like you, just turned 29, can hit a hole-in-one for the first time in your life. Like, literally. And it is for anyone. It's the thinking man's game. It's always been explained that way, which is why it usually leaves me out, Rob. So, but I would say this. We talk about baseball players and drafting an Adley Rutschman, right, or drafting a Hollywood and bringing these young players in. You're a Redskin fans. You don't know much about that because they don't develop talent down there. But for guys that get better, you talk about these prodigies. Dude, every guy on the tour was a prodigy, right? Maybe not the Tiger kind of prodigy. They were always the little kid at their club that was the best player. They were always the 13-year-old beating the adults. They were always the one on scholarship, right? Like that's what this is. And even if they're from South Africa or even if they're from Norway, wherever they're from, they were always the best of the best of the best. And there's something about that level of expectation. And look, Tiger sort of screwed things up in the way LeBron screws things up or in the way Michael Jordan screws things up or whoever that Tom Brady, whoever that guy is that makes it hard for everybody else to win during their era. But, behind every story that's a one-trick pony that only wins one major, has one hit record, right, has one great season, there's just so much that goes into it. And for a guy like Gary Woodland that gets onto a guy's radar like myself, who I saw him as a name, but I didn't know what he looked like. You know what I mean? I didn't know what his voice sounded like. And I'm not, dude, you're a nerd. You're in it, man. But I'm telling you, 75% of America heard his voice for the first time after the U.S. Open, literally, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. And it's funny, his biggest quote-unquote claim to fame prior to this was the video that made the rounds after he won the U.S. Open with him, with the girl at the Waste Management Open that has Down syndrome that, played the par 3 with him.
And we hear these great stories after they win, right? But these are things they're doing, like the little girl with the St. Louis Blues. I didn't know anything about that story until, they win the Stanley Cup, and there's this beautiful girl who's been fighting cancer holding the Stanley Cup,
Yeah. Until then, it's not a story. It's a local story. Maybe the Blues knew about it. Obviously Woodland and some of the hardcore golfers knew about this at the Waste Management. I saw it when it happened. I thought it was great, and, it kind of got shelved and forgotten until, he won this weekend. And, then everything, then it's brought up again and everyone thinks it's great. And, he's one, he's toiled out there in anonymity for, like I said, 6 or 7 years. And, he's not one that's you see and focus on every week. So, I mean, I have friends that are golfers that didn't know about him, so it's not just you and not just, the people that don't follow it on a week-to-week basis. He was definitely not one that most people, like you said, could have picked out of a lineup. And, but then it's funny, you watch him on Saturday and Sunday on TV, and he's cut a lot out of the same mold as Koepka. They're both big, athletic guys.
Dude, but everybody was expecting him to fold up, right? Literally, everybody was expecting him to go Sergio, right? Literally.
Yeah, no, that was the thing. Having not been there before, and only having a handful of regular tour wins, and never having really done it in a major, and with Koepka right there and Rose both right behind him. I did. I thought he would shoot maybe a 74. I didn't think he'd shoot an 85.
Koepka was 3 shots behind, and everybody's on Twitter saying it's his tournament to lose now. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, 3 shots is, and Woodland just never gave him a chance. Woodland made a couple early birdies, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's not going to fold, and then, Koepka got off to that hot start and got within a stroke, but, Woodland just never opened the door for, Koepka to do it. He went for a par 5 that no one's gone for all week on number 14, and he reached it, and then put the dagger in it. He didn't need the birdie on 18, but put the exclamation point on it.
Well, that course is crazy, right? Because it's absolutely treacherous on one end, and then you go into deep grass on the end, and you think you're in a bad spot, but you can. These two guys at the end of the day didn't do anything to really accelerate their fall. You know what I mean? It was fascinating to watch it over the last 2 hours because you're waiting for the fatal flaw or you're waiting for the, oh my God, look at that shot. None of that really happened. Literally, it was just a bunch of really good, solid, sort of kind of safe to some degree until that point, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great description of it. None of them.
And I don't know anything about golf. How about that, right?
Yeah, none of them had the train wreck. And sure, it's funny. You think about a course that's defined by the ocean. I mean, that's what everyone thinks of. You see all these overhead shots of the ocean comes into play on 9 and 10 of the holes, but there's really no water in play on the course. It's not like they had the ocean fronting the 18th green that they had to hit over from 200 yards. It's off there to the side, but for these guys, the best of the world, that water never came into play. It's just beautiful scenery, and they may have hit it into the tall stuff, but they knew where they could hit it and where they could get out of it. And I mean, both Woodland and Koepka both shot really good rounds on Sunday. It was just Woodland had too big a lead going in for Koepka's round. Koepka shot 67 or 68, and on a Sunday, and you can't complain about that. You tip your hat to Woodland, shooting his 2 or 3 under and winning it. So it was it was good golf, which is what you wanted to see. You didn't have a Greg Norman train wreck, where you feel like, oh my God, this guy's losing it. I can't stand to watch it. It was just it was good golf all the way through, and Koepka, my gosh, I mean, let's talk about it. He's either going to win or come in second in every major, it looks like. I mean, granted, it's only a little 2-year run he's been on, but, a lot of times you see guys either they win or they finish in 40th place, and that's certainly not with him. I mean, so it's going to be fun to watch, him at the final major, the British Open, coming up next month, and then, going forward next year to see, how he does over the coming years. So, it was a beautiful course and a good tournament.
Let me say this, man, because, I don't want to belabor it too much, and I want to talk about the bros on the golf course and all that, and your vibe and all that, but watching it on Sunday because, it's captured audience, right? There was nothing else on. Stanley Cup's over. NHL's over. The Orioles bleeding had ended by then on Sunday. There was a baseball game and the Cubs and the Dodgers run, but my wife and I just put it on at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and just left it on. And
right.
So it was just sort of background. I was working on my July Hall of Fame project, which I know I've talked up a lot about all these incredible Hall of Famers that I've interviewed over 30 years. And I guess this is where the grown-up part of me and the 50-year-old part of me that doesn't have the Golf Jones, you know what I mean? It's not my bloodline, but it is when I'm watching it. It made me want to come down and play. It made me want to come down and take my wife down and just tap a few in and, work on some putt-putt, whatever. But there's a part of it as well, when you watch these personalities and you're an outsider to it, you're not, you know who Tiger Woods is. You've seen Koepka speak. You know a little about Justin Rose and Oosthuizen because he has a funny name or whatever. And then this guy wins, and I'm always like, I wonder what he's going to say. Like the drama at the Masters a couple years ago, where the story comes out about what a bad guy the guy, all that stuff. Then I see Koepka come out every time and just seems like, not like he's trained by a PR professional like I'd see after an NBA game or even after a baseball or a hockey game or what I'm subjected to at football post-game, but a real sort of honest assessment. And I've really taken a liking to him, especially in defeat and how he's handled himself. And I think that there's something really cool about that draws me to him. But also in winning to see what the next guy's about. That the post-game with golf, if I'm going to devote 4 hours to it, I'm going to give it 20 minutes to see what this person's about. Because usually I'm Googling them, literally. When I didn't know anybody like Gary Woodland. I'm Googling him, when he's winning, at 6:15 and saying, all right, who is this guy that everybody on the web says is going to break down over the next 3 hours?
Right.
Who am I going to be talking to Canady about on Monday or Tuesday about blowing it on Sunday, right? At Pebble Beach.
And the backstory to that, which you probably read or heard about, was the tragedy he and his wife had with the twins that she was pregnant with a couple of years ago. So this guy had been through a lot tougher things in life than losing a golf tournament. And
wow,
so that probably
adversity, real adversity, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that puts a real perspective on it. And here she is pregnant again. 10 months, I think, or I mean, not 10 months, but 8 months pregnant, and she wasn't able to be there and travel and everything. And it's got to be on his mind again. Hope everything goes okay with this one. But so you don't know those backstories and what these guys are made up of, and why he was able to withstand Koepka's early onslaught of birdies. That's what he did. Koepka came out birdied like 4 of the first 5 holes, and got within a stroke. But Woodland answered him with a couple of his own. So it is neat to see those stories, and I agree with you. To kind of hear about them, because you see them on course, and all you see is this guy in a hat walking down the 18 fairways, and neither of them show a lot of emotion, like a Tiger or a Phil would do. So it's not until you get to hear them talk that you learn a little bit about them personally and determine, whether, I like this dude, or, whether it's Patrick Reed or Ian Poulter or someone like, not so much, So, you find out then if that's someone you're going to root for maybe going forward and everything, how they handled it, both victory and defeat. And, they both did great in it. Koepka was very gracious in his comments. He said, hey, I played as well as I could be, and Gary just played phenomenal. Hats off to him.
Well, it's supposed to be like sort of this gentleman's sport. I mean, from it, and all sport. Look, I watched the Stanley Cup last week, right? I'm with Gary Rissling. I'm with a room full of hockey players. We had Clippers, Skipjacks, and Bandits all in the same room together. Guys that have played in the NHL, guys that have played for the Ducks and the Penguins and the Capitals, and up and down the board. And to a man, every one of them talked about the handshake. After a series is over, that is the way you do it. You know what I mean? And I guess to see a guy lose a major like that and speak about it in a real grown-up fashion, that's refreshing to me, because I don't always get that. And you don't always want that in the locker room after you lose a big football game. You want guys to be pissed, but you also want folks to comport themselves in an appropriate fashion. And to your point, my wife's almost died twice, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you just have a different perspective on it, I guess, when you've lost twins, and you view it differently. And I think I view it differently at 50 and what I'm expecting than what I was 30, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, just to touch on that again with Koepka, he finished almost 30 minutes ahead of Woodland. So, and he could have easily been sitting in the parking lot with the TV on in one corner, making sure that he didn't hit it in the ocean for a playoff, and then buzzed out of there. But he actually stuck around behind the green, and once Woodland came off, did his quick TV interview, was there to give him the bro hug and congratulations. And that's something he didn't have to do. I guarantee there's been a tournament or two where Tiger finished second that he probably did. Back in his day, stick around and congratulate the winner and everything. So,
well, I get on everybody about this. I mean, Cam Newton, as you know what I mean? Like, there's a guy there that at that moment certainly did not shine, right?
Right. Yep.
And my dad had a particular distaste for sore losers, right? So and I think sportsmanship is what's being taught, and I just I thought it was a good life lesson. Robert Canady here, Buckets and Birds out on Twitter. The Buckets are the basketball season. The Birds come right about now. Compass Points here. I've already sneezed 14 times here. So just being around you makes me sneeze. I think at this point I need some antihistamine. The bros on the golf course and the get in the hole and the Gary, all that was going on. Where are you on that? I mean, I used to think this 30 years ago about tennis, right? Like you go to tennis and you have to be quiet and whatnot, and other sports have noise. I mean, I like me a quiet, respectful golf course in a society that, quite frankly, lacks that at this point, pretty much across the board, man.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be the old get off my yard, old man type thing, but I hate it. I mean, I had this discussion with someone the other day about it, and again, I'm the nerd and I'm different in this. I think they could easily do it by killing the tee that's on the mic. I mean, killing the microphone that's on the tee. We don't need that. I'm the type, not everyone's a Joe Buck fan, or a Paul Azinger fan or whatever, but I'd at least rather hear what those guys say about the shot or whatever than hear some guy yell, whatever he's yelling, Baba Booey, get in the hole and all this, hole after hole after hole. And, it's been talked about that it's, what society is now, so that they can do it and they can go back and listen on their phones 10 minutes later, on the coverage or DVR when they get home that night, And,
America, what are we doing?
Yeah, but, I don't like it. I wish, that the networks, whether it's Fox or ABC, NBC, whoever's broadcasting at CBS, just do away with those mics on the phone, on the course, at least right around the tee shots.
Well, we're in a different world, right? Like you go into a theater now, a lot of artists just say, can you just please put your phone down?
Right.
Mellencamp's just like, look, I just don't want to perform with all of you holding your phones up. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not – it's not why I'm here. You know what I mean?
There was – I don't know if we've talked about this or not when it happened, but it was about a year or 2 years ago. Phones are allowed on the course now, and you see it on every shot. But, 15 million people holding their phones up to get the shot. Well, there was a tournament a couple years ago where Jordan Spieth had this really tough chip shot coming out of the rough near the green, and he's surrounded by he's in the middle of the gallery. It was one he hit offline. He's surrounded by 100 people that have their phones up. And he stepped back and very politely said, you can hear the microphones pick this up, hey, if you all don't mind, can you put your phones down on this one shot? This is really tough. Can you just put them down? And said it very nicely, and they all did. And then he turned around and said, it is okay to actually watch the golf now and then. And I thought that was great, and it was, so on point. And they all chuckled and everything. But, we're all viewing, I say I don't really do it, but you see everyone viewing the action on the course through their 3x5 screen or whatever it is. And it's just, it's a different time, a different age, but it is what it is now.
He is Robert Canady. He's Buckets and Birds. He's down at Compass Point. Tell me something good about Compass Point with 2 golf courses down there and plenty of room for everybody to get down there and hit it while you can get it right now because it's good weather, right?
Oh, yeah. It is. And you talk about plenty of room, and we had that this past weekend. The U.S. Open and Father's Day weekend combination, which is every year, always brings out the regular golfers, the once-a-year golfers. We had a jam-packed course both Saturday and Sunday, 500 golfers each day. So that was, with the 2 courses, they were both pretty much packed all day long.
Did you run out of beer? I mean, I'm just asking.
No, we had plenty of that on hand, because we had 2 big outings on Friday before it, which is what we do. We do all these big charity outings, whether it's a group of 20 or whether it's a group of 200. People raising money for their charity. So we had 2 of those on Friday as well. So it was a busy weekend here, which is great to see. The great weather for the most part. And the next big thing we have coming up that we've talked a little bit about this, but not a lot, is it's called the Anne Arundel County Amateur. So it's an actual real golf tournament. It's not the scrambles that some of the dedicated golfers hate to play in.
This is like a real thing. You are literally the county champion if you win.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's going to be a great, there'll be a couple divisions. There'll be a senior division and regular division. And So, anyone of all levels can play, and, we'll have a trophy and really nice prizes during the outing with it. And there'll be 2 days of golf, and that's July 14th and 13th and 14th, or 15th, I should know this, whatever that Saturday and Sunday is, there in July. So it'll be two rounds of tournament action, and
that's 13-14. You had it right.
13th. Thank you. I just got mixed up on my 13th and 14th, Saturday and Sunday, and
no one will be there yelling, "Get in the hole!" No, there
won't be any of that. If there are, I might personally escort them off the course. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Robert Canady's a large man. He will spank you. Hey, man, we'll send everybody down there to visit with you. I know we're a couple weeks out on a major. I'm going into Hall of Fame month, but we'll continue to check in here and come down and visit you guys down in Pasadena and get ready. Night golf looked like fun. I watched that a little bit too out online. You put some pictures up.
Yeah, we did. I had a good crowd for that. Another full field of like 70 players, and it was great weather for it. And it was another good time. Everyone always loves that. We'll have one of those coming up, I think, again in August. So if anyone missed out on it this time, there's at least one more coming up that they can get in. Actually, probably two more coming up. One in August and then one in the fall. So.
Robert Canady, buckets and birds and no bros on the course down at Compass Point Golf for the Anne Arundel County Open. And you can check them out at compasspointgolf.com and at Buckets and Birds, where we'll get some basketball together. It's almost the middle of summer already. They just ended the NBA draft already. Send Zion to the Crescent City. Lakers and Hornets. I haven't even talked any of that stuff. Got to do a little bit of that. I do have Bill Walton on the air next month. That'll be fun. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook. Always out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking. Even golf and Baltimore sports and Baltimore positive.